You know what I think the real problem is with a lot of these franchises? If you think about the franchises that we used to get, they were not franchises that were spread over decades, maybe a decade. Like Back to the Future came out in 85. And when did Back to the Future 2 and 3 come out? Was it 89? Boom. So Back to the Future basically belonged to this 5-year period of time. That was it. So it was an 80s franchise. Back to the Future did not extend outward. Lethal Weapon went on for a little longer, but you started in 87. You went into the 90s. Lethal Weapon 3, by the way, didn't really have a script, but whatever. You still love Riggs and Murtaugh. Lethal Weapon to Lethal Weapon 4. Period of time. Nobody's making, thank God, Lethal Weapon movies into the 2020s. I mean, Riggs and Murtaugh. And nor do they go back and reboot them, because Lethal Weapon and Back to the Future belong to the time in which they were made. As any good franchise, all the great franchises, when Hollywood decided to reboot everything, and like, how'd that Crow remake work out for you? Huh? It didn't. Because franchises, and this is something, franchises are as much tied to the zeitgeist of the time in which they came out as anything else. Now, sure, you can bring back stuff, but you have to be very aware that what you're doing is you're taking something that was a natural evolution of the time in which it originally came out, and you're trying to transpose that where its core is from a different time. And you're like, well, let's bring it up 5 decades. In the case of Star Trek or even Star Wars, I mean, in 1977, by the way, Star Wars, in 2 years, it's 50. 50. Now, kids love Star Wars because it's kind of timeless and it will always appeal to the kid in all of us. So every kid that grows up can have a Star Wars period of time. But don't forget, Star Wars was born originally out of George Lucas and what was going on in the 1970s. Now, you can transpose it because you can keep that fairy tale element going. But all of our franchises, James Bond really was a product of the Cold War. When M called him remember, Judi Dench, when she became M, called Bond a sexist, misogynist dinosaur in 1995. She called him that 30 years ago. And then we still got this by the time you get to the latter half of the Daniel Craig era, what time does he belong in? Who is James Bond? How does he relate? He's kind of like living in a nondescript world. Like, even when you see him running around London in Skyfall, when is that? It's it's completely timeless, which is not what Bond was all about. Bond was very much a product of his time. And the Daniel Craig era sort of took Bond out of time and put him in sort of this timeless state. And so, like, when you get to Spectre and you're meeting Blofeld and you're seeing his plan, it's like, this is who cares? I mean, there's a big car chase with what's his face, Drax. Why am I drawing a blank? I'm getting old. There's a car chase in Spectre where there's like no other cars except the 2 cars in the chase at night on the empty streets. Who wants to have a car chase on empty streets? You're watching this, and it is the most non-exciting car chase ever, even though Sam Mendes is directing it, because there's no danger. They don't know, like, the Daniel Craig franchise had no connection to the time in which they were made, and it was this weird, they wanted to connect everything and have their cake and eat it too. What they did with the Bond franchise in the Craig era after Casino Royale is kind of a travesty. Because they were, again, like what they did in the 70s with Bond, they were chasing trends. Let's make it like The Dark Knight. Let's make it like the Bourne movies. We'll cut Quantum of Solace like a Bourne movie, even though it's not shot like a Bourne movie. We don't have the coverage, so we'll just do quick cutting, which means it's incoherent. The reason that the Bourne movies worked from an editorial standpoint is Greengrass, as fast as those movies are cut. And I would say that if you get to the third one, The Bourne Supremacy, if you look at it from a filmmaking perspective and you look at how that movie is cut, it's a new genre of filmmaking. I don't know what you'd call it, because geographically, even though it's cut, you never lose where you're at. The filmmaking, Greengrass did something really interesting. He created this weird style where It's so fast, but you always know where you're going. You're never lost. A lot of filmmakers don't know how to do that. What you do is you do that kind of fast cutting in post because you're trying to save the movie. Your fight scenes don't work very well. The pacing doesn't work very well. So you throw caution to the wind and cut the shit out of your movie and hope people won't notice. Then you get something like Snake Eyes, which was fucking bullshit. But when they did that in Quantum of Solace, the movie wasn't shot that way. So you're like, yo, I know Stuart Baird edited that film, but they probably told him it's got to be like, make it like Bourne. Don't do that. Don't do that. We all know we know you're tricking us, and you're not tricking us well. And there's a lot of great stuff in Quantum of Solace. I mean, I'm not Peter Avellino, and if he was here, he would poo-poo me. But I'm a Quantum of Solace apologist. I want a Quantum of Solace about my position on Quantum of Solace. It'd make me feel better. It is not a great movie, but Olga Kurylenko is a great Bond girl. The villain's not very interesting, but I like his linen suits. And, but there's a lot of stuff in that movie that I like. Mathis is great. Anyway, you got to make your franchise relevant to the audiences of today.